Good morning. It's Wednesday, March 24th. That's my daughter's birthday. And I'm sitting here down in the basement where it's nice and quiet. And I'm doing this rant from the basement, which seems appropriate because this country is in dire straits and needing a tremendous amount of work on our infrastructure. Now, from what I've been reading, infrastructure is roads and bridges and airline terminals and railroad stations and who knows how many other public facilities. And we all know that we need this work done. But after passing a $1.9 trillion relief package for the pandemic, how are we going to raise an estimated somewhere between $3 and $4 trillion to work on infrastructure? Now, there are several proposals that have been kicked around, and all of them involve some sort of tax increase or tax credits or some monumental change to our lifestyles in order to pay for this. And I don't know how we're going to do that, how we are going to convince this divided Congress and divided nations about what we need to do and what we need to do first and what we need to do second and what we need to do third. So I'm hoping that somebody out there can. It looks to me, based upon my reading, that this $3 or $4 trillion shouldn't be one bill. It should be several bills. Maybe we have a bill for the roads and the highways, and another bill for airports and airlines and railroad stations and bus terminals and ferry landings. And it would seem to me that this shouldn't be totally 100% on the people of this country. I believe that many corporations should be helping us with this funding. For instance, in the airline business, we're building and spending huge money on these terminals. That benefits the travelers, but it also benefits the airlines. So maybe they should kick in a fair share of the money. And the same thing for the railroads and the ferries and the bus lines, Greyhound and whoever else is running the buses these days, right? I don't think it's a 100% people pay all deal. Now, I know that many people will jump up and down and say it's socialism, it's something like that, But it's not socialism. It's more than that. This is about getting this country straightened out. This is about everybody contributing their fair share. Why should companies be allowed to make billions of dollars and not pay taxes on it? Because our tax laws are deficient and carry exemptions that are 100 years old and have long since outlived their usefulness. So that's a piece of what I'm thinking here. And then, of course, we have our divided Congress to deal with. And I'm not sure that the Republicans are willing to kick in that much money. Trump had a plan that he proposed. He was going to spend $200 billion over 10 years to spur $1.5 trillion in largely private sector infrastructure spending. So if getting the private sector was okay for Donald Trump to suggest, why is it not okay for a Democrat to suggest something similar to that? And then there's this other thing that the Republicans want to do away with the ban on earmarks. Now, you all know what earmarks are. But for those of you who don't know, an earmark is like a bribe. You go to a guy who's holding out, like Manchin did on the stimulus package and the $15 an hour, and you whisper in his ear, "Hey, Joe, I got a deal for you. You vote, and we give you this, this, and this." How about that? How about they want to lift the ban on earmarks? Now, the earmarks were put in place because everybody recognized it was a bribe, but they want to bring it back. They want to bring it back. I'm not sure why the Republicans want to release this ban. since it would work in Biden's favor if he had these sweeteners to use. But that remains to be seen. I guess I would be in favor of sweeteners if we can get an infrastructure plan in place and a lot of other things. Now, these plans, infrastructure plans, and would be a boon to the economy in a sense that I am assuming that if we're going to put out that much money, it means there are jobs going to be created for a lot of people. And there are a lot of people who desperately need these jobs right now. So there's no way people should be against the creation of these infrastructure bills. And in my mind, everybody should be prepared to pay their fair share. And I'm not talking about every single person, because obviously there are some people that can't afford to pay their fair share. So I'm thinking, and then along with Joe, that there's got to be some kind of income level at which you are exempt from getting involved in funding the infrastructure things. So right now, I know they talked about a $400,000 cutoff. People who make less than $400,000 wouldn't have to pay into this package. But in my mind, that's way too high. Way too high. If you're making $400,000, you're in the top 5% in this country, probably. Maybe even higher up the ladder than that. So certainly you can afford to pay something. But I would say if you're in the top 10, 15, or maybe even 20% of this country, you can chip in something for infrastructure. It doesn't have to be painstaking. It doesn't have to be painful. But you have to give something. We got 330 million people in this country. And 150 million people work. So if you do some math, you can figure out how much money each person individually should pay, and then you just adjust it according to where their income level is, and maybe we could raise $1 trillion or so, you know? And then you got the private corporations and everything, and they can throw some money into the pot. It wouldn't hurt them. And maybe this other thing is that the government has decided that they might be able to cut as much as $700 billion from their budget. And they're talking about over a decade. So that's $70 billion a year that the government would contribute to this package. And that's bupkis in the big scheme of things. So there's a lot of work to be done on infrastructure, a lot of thinking to be done. And hopefully we'll come up with some answers. And maybe we'll have a country that looks a little bit better than it does right now. And maybe people will even come together and work as a unit to get this thing done. We have been divided for too long now. It's time to get off our ass and get together and get to work. So that's what I have to say this morning. And I wish you all a good day. And I'll see you in the morning. Bye.